Hello everyone and welcome to another video. So finally after 15 years I am building myself a new computer. So for the past 15 years I'm using the same computer, and every single video that I have uploaded on this channel was rendered, edited, the thumbnails were edited on the very same computer. So let me show you that computer first. So as you can see, this is my 15 years old computer, and I have completely removed the side panel, both the side panels, because every once in a while something goes wrong with this computer. And as you can see, the computer was running a little hotter because of the old capacitors, and that's why I have this metal wire hanging this small 12-volt fan which is blowing on towards the motherboard, which keeps the motherboard cool. And I'm still running a hard disk drive which is running the operating system. I'm using Windows 7 on this computer. However, but if you look at the desk on the top, you will see that it doesn't look that old, because I did replace the monitor, because the monitor which was a CRT monitor got damaged. Actually it stopped working, so I replaced that with this flat screen 23.4 inch LG monitor, and that's pretty much the only thing that I have upgraded on this computer. One thing I also did was that when I first built this computer 15 years ago, I bought a 512 MB of RAM, and that wasn't enough. That was just not enough in today's time. I was having a lot of trouble, so that is pretty much the only thing that I upgraded on this computer. So I am currently running a 2 GB of RAM in this computer, and this is how my old computer looks. So now let us take a look at what I have chosen this time. So these are the components that I have chosen this time, and this is very expensive. I have never spent this much money on anything in my life ever. So this is one of the most expensive build that I have ever done. So the core or the heart of this computer is going to be the processor, and after running a Pentium dual core, actually I forgot to mention that my old computer, the 15-year-old computer that I just shown you, is running a Pentium dual core computer, and this is a huge upgrade from that. So this is the Intel Core i5 11th generation 11400 processor. I didn't buy the F series of the FSQ version because I don't have money to buy an extra graphics card, so I chose rather spending a little more money on the processor itself, so that if ever I wanted to replace this, if I ever wanted to move this processor from one motherboard to another, I would be able to do that without having to worry about any display issues, because if you buy the F series processor, you will not get any display drivers, sorry, the display chip, the video chip on the processor itself. So that's why I went with the 11400 and not the 11400F. So this is going to be the heart of this computer, and to mount this processor I chose the Asus Prime H510 chipset. And as you can see, this is a fairly new motherboard, and the socket this processor supports is the LGA 1200 socket. So for this, for the processor I paid about 13,500 rupees, Indian rupees. For the motherboard I paid about 6,400 rupees in the local market. And now let us take a look at the power supply that I have chosen. So the power supply that I have chosen is from the Ant Esports. This has no rating. This doesn't come with any 80+ rating, but this is fairly powerful. This is a 600 watt power supply, so if in future, if I ever needed to add more components or do some testing as a YouTuber, as somebody who makes videos, I often buy a lot of extra accessories that needs more power, so this should be helpful while doing that. The RAM that I have chosen is only 8 GB this time, because I don't have enough money to buy more RAM. This is the 8 GB Crucial RAM. As you can see, 1.2 volt DDR4, 3200 megahertz, and the frequency and the speed is CL22. So there is that 8 GB of RAM. I think this should be enough for the time being. Once I have the money, I will also upgrade that. And the SSD that I'm using is the 240 GB of Bx500, that is also from Crucial. So the power supply, I bought this for about 2300 rupees, that is 2300 rupees. The RAM, I got the RAM is for 1600 rupees, 1600. And the SSD, again I got this for I paid about 1500 rupees. So there is that. So without any further delay, let's just take everything out one by one and complete this build. Now unfortunately, after buying all these components, I ran out of money, so I haven't bought a case for this build, so I will be running this computer on top of this box. Once I have enough money, I will eventually purchase a case to put this all in, but for the time, for the next 2 to 3 months, I will be running this without a case. So there is that. So let us carry on with our build. Okay, so the first thing that we do when building a computer is take the motherboard out first. I think that is the first thing that I always do. So this is the motherboard, Asus Prime H510M. So let me take the motherboard out. So this is the motherboard. I will be keeping this motherboard on top of the box itself. Let's take a look at what else we get in the box. So inside the box you will get a small piece of pamphlet, a driver CD, a manual which will help you put this motherboard together, the back plate for your case. As I just mentioned, I haven't bought the case yet, so once I buy the case we will be using this, and I will be making a video as well. Inside this small contraption you will also get 2 pieces of SATA data cable, and there seems to be another package here, and these are your 2 screws. One is the standoff and other is the screws for mounting your M.2 SSD, because this motherboard also comes with an M.2 slot as well. So let me keep all these things aside, and what I will do is I will keep all these things inside the inside there, and then I will put my motherboard on top of the box itself. So I think this is the safest place where you can put the motherboard. It is non-conductive and you will not damage any pins. So this is how the motherboard looks, and this is your CPU socket. Starting with our motherboard, we will put our CPU first. So let me just take our CPU out. So the CPU that we are using is the Intel Core i5 11th generation i5 11400. So let me take the CPU out and let's take a look at what we get in the box as well. So this is the CPU. This is not an F series CPU, meaning this CPU has the onboard graphics. So I will not be needing a separate graphics card. So this is my CPU, as you can see, and let me show you the model number on top of the CPU as well. As you can see, this is the i5 11400 11th generation chip. Let me keep this on here. Here is our fan. Let me take the fan out, and once you take the fan out, make sure that you don't touch these gray part, because this is your thermal paste. Some time ago there used to be a small cover protecting this, but now they don't even bother putting a cover. It's just this cardboard box to make sure that you don't touch it. So carefully take the fan out, and that's pretty much what you get inside the CPU box. So let me just put the fan on the side and take the CPU out. So let me just push in from there. So as you can see, our CPU is now out. Oh my god, this is the best feeling in the world. I have never thought that I would be putting this expensive computer together. Now this is not the most expensive computer that you can build today, but for my standard, considering that the only computer that I have used had a Intel Pentium dual core processor, from a dual core to an Core i5, and that to an 11th generation processor is a huge upgrade. Alright, so let us put the processor in. As you can see, these are all the pins, and if you count all these these mounting pads, they will total up to about 1200, and that also gives you the number of the socket, the LGA 1200 number. So let me remove this protective cover from there, and let me open this from here, pull this back, and as you can see, these are all the pins inside your motherboard. Make sure you don't bend these pins. These are very delicate pins, and if you bend any one of these pins, you may end up damaging your motherboard completely. So make sure you're very careful when installing the processor on your motherboard. So let us do that carefully. Now the one question often comes to you is that the processor looks square, the mounting socket also looks square. So what is the correct orientation? So to know the correct orientation, what you have to do is look at the processor, and on the processor you will find a small triangle on one side. As you can see, all the other sides have a small circle. Let me show you properly. So you can see that this is a circle, there is a circle, but on this side you have a small triangle on the processor. And if you take a look at the metal part on the motherboard, you will see that there is also a small triangle which lets you know that this is the correct orientation. So you'll have to match the small triangle on the processor and the small triangle on the metal part. Sometimes the metal part doesn't have the small triangle, it is only on the inside of the somewhere here. So this is the correct orientation. If you put this carefully, as you can see, it went in without any problem. Just move it a little bit, make sure that it is completely flush, and then put this down, and then you can simply press it down and your processor is installed. So that's one part done. Now let us install the RAM on our motherboard. Now for RAM, I've chosen this Crucial 8 GB RAM. For this RAM I paid about 1600 rupees. Let me take the RAM out. Eventually I will buy one more stick from the same brand. As you can see, this is how the RAM looks. So let us put this in our motherboard. So you will see on every motherboard there is a small notch in the slot, and you will have to match the slot on the RAM and on the socket as well. So what I like to do is put the RAM closest to the CPU. So let me open these first. So as you can see, these are now opened. So let me press in the RAM, and as you can see, this is not going in this direction, so I'll have to flip it like that so that the notch on the RAM matches with the notch on the board. As you can see, it went in, and you can see the notch matches up perfectly. In the middle you can see there. Just make sure you press it from both the side and then press it from here, and you can see this will latch on. That means your RAM is in. So as you can see, the RAM is completely in. Alright, so the most of the part is now done. So let us install the CPU fan now. Make sure that you don't touch this gray part because this is the thermal paste. This is your wire that will connect to your CPU header on the motherboard. So let me show you where is the CPU mounting header is. So as you can see, right on the left side of the RAM mounting place, you will see that it says CPU fan. So make sure your fan is in the correct orientation so that your wire reaches there perfectly. So let's take a look at whether if this is a good orientation. If this is a good orientation, so you will have to do this a couple of times, back and forth, making sure that you're getting the wire is not loose and you're getting a perfect length of the cable. So for me, I think this is the perfect orientation. So all I will have to do is match this notch with the connector on the motherboard, and it should fit without any problem. So let me just install this, and as you can see, it went right in. Let me give you a little close up. You can see that's where I connected the fan. To put the fan inside the motherboard, all you will have to do is just pass these plastic through the hole given on the motherboard and press the button after that. So it's completely down. What I have to do is press them down. That's one, that's two, that's the other one, and the final one is now left. Let me do that as well. So that one had a little bit of problem, but I was able to put this without any problem. So as you can see, it is now done perfectly. And let us connect the power supply and see whether it powers on or not. So here is the power supply. So let us take the power supply out first. So this is the VS600L from Ant Esports, and this is how the packaging looks from inside. So inside we get the power cable, which is about 1.8 meter long, your typical 3-pin style plug, and then we get the power supply itself. There is a small packet which has about a couple of pieces of, I think 4 pieces of cable ties and a couple of screws, 4 screws for mounting the power supply. So let me put that back, and there is a small pamphlet about the power supply, and here is the power supply itself. So as you can see, only the 24-pin connector is braided, else all other wires are not braided. This is a non-modular power supply, meaning all the wires are always connected to the power supply. So let me take the power supply out and connect our motherboard. I will put the motherboard on top of the box now. So here is the motherboard. So let's start from the biggest connector, which is the 24 pin connector here. So let me show you where is that connector on our power supply. So as you can see, this is our power supply, and as you can see, there is a lot of connectors here. Here is the biggest connector that I was talking about. This is the 24 pin connector, and that should connect there. So let me just connect that first. So our 24 pin connector is now connected. Press it down, it's in. So now that our 24 pin connector is connected, let's connect our CPU connector. On the left side of the motherboard, you will see that there is your P8 connector or 8 pin connector that will power the CPU. As you can see, this is our 8 pin connector. So let's find our 8 pin connector on the power supply, and if you take a look at here, this is your 8 pin connector, and usually they come in pair of 2 in group of 4, so you can easily detach one. So if your motherboard has only 4 pin connector, you can use this or this. If your motherboard has 8 pin connector, then you will have to combine both of them to form an 8 pin connector. Do not confuse this with the 6+2 connector, which is your PCI connector. They usually come in this form, 6+2, and the CPU connector in a group of 4. So 4 pin here and 4 pin there. So take our 8 pin connector. Let me connect it here. So our 8 pin connector is now done. That means it is supplying power to our CPU. Now the only thing left to connect is our SSD. So let us connect our SSD as well. So here is our SSD. This is the Bx500, 480 GB. Initially I was going to put about a 240 GB, but then I decided to go with 480 GB. So let me take this out. This SSD already has Windows 10 installed on it, and that is one of the reason I am putting this one in, because in the 240 GB I had to install the Windows. In this one I will not have to install Windows, so that's a good thing. So let me take the SSD out. Now if you look at the SSD, it has only 2 connectors. The smaller connector is for the data, and the bigger connectors is for the power. So we know this connector will connect to our power supply, and if you take a look at the cables that comes with your power supply, you will find these connectors. These connectors, they look like this from the back, and oftentimes they will have SATA written on top of them. So one of the connectors will connect here. So let me just connect that. So that's our SATA connector connected. Let me take the packet out from the motherboard. So I got 2 pieces of data cable from the motherboard. Let me take one out. Let's go with the straight cable, and here is my data cable. I got 2 cables in the packet of my motherboard. So let's plug this in as well. The other port on the SSD is for your data connector. So let me see if this connects this way. No, I think this goes that way. That's it. You hear the click. So SSD is now connected, and if you take a look at on the motherboard, so let me give you a little close up. So you can see that there is one SATA port which says SATA 6G1, and that's where our data cable from our SSD is going to be connected. So one end goes on top of here, and the other end of the data cable connects on there. So let me just connect that. So our SSD is also now connected. Now because I don't have enough money to buy the case, this is how I will be running my computer for about 2-3 months. Once I have the case, I will put this all in the case, and I will also make a video then. But now let us connect a motherboard, connect a monitor, and see whether it turns or not, or whether we have Windows working or not. Alright, so as you can see, I've put everything on top of my old computer. Here's the motherboard all put together. There is our power supply. So let's put a power connector to our power supply. So here is my power connector. So let me just plug this in. As you can see, here is your power on off switch. So at the moment it is on the off position. Make sure it is always on the off position before plugging anything for the first time. The power connector is now plugged in. Do not turn this on just yet. Let us first connect the our monitor. And this is our monitor. This is a LG 23.4 inch monitor, and at the moment I don't have an HDMI cable with me, so I will be only using VGA cable. And because I don't have a graphics card, as you can see, I will be using the onboard graphics of the CPU, and that's one of the reason I bought the 11400 and not the 11400F. The F SKU processors do not come with a graphics chip on top of them, so you always have to buy a graphics card to use F series processor. So let me just plug in a VGA cable. So there is our VGA connector, so let me plug in the VGA cable. I think it is in. So the moment of truth, let me just turn the motherboard on, and let me show you, if you don't have a case, how to turn a motherboard on. So as you can see, this is our case, and this part is typically where you will connect your power button if you have a case, but in this case I don't have a power button. So as you can see, you have to look at this bottom connector, and there is some writings on the motherboard as well which says power LED, power button. So these are the connectors that I'm referring to, and this is how they look. So you will have 4 connectors on the top and 5 connectors, 5 pins at the bottom, which is what is available here. 4 pins on the top and 5 pins at the bottom. So what we need to do is we need to connect the top right 2 pins of the connector. So as you can see here, if I short these 2 pins together, on top there are 4 pins, at the bottom there are 5 pins. If I short these 2 pins together, then my motherboard will be turned on. As you can see on here, if I show you, you will see that there are 4 pins on the top and the 5 pins at the bottom. If I short these 2 pins, the top right 2 pins, this one and that one, then my motherboard will be turned on. So let me short them together. So the easiest way to short them together is by using a screwdriver or any other keys if you have. So let me just first turn the power supply on. Fingers crossed, I hope everything works out. So as I said, we need to short the top right 2 pins. So as you can see, this is our connector. I need to short these 2 pins. It's connected, it is spinning, nothing is happening now. Let's take a look at the motherboard. It says no keyboard detected. That's fair. I have not connected any keyboard just yet. Let's see if it goes onto the Windows. Here is our Asus logo. It looks very promising. This is the first time I am using Asus, and there we go, we're right into the Windows. So let me just connect a keyboard and mouse and look at the properties of the computer. And however, as you can see, it looks very nice, and I can't really explain you what I'm feeling at the moment. This is one of the most expensive computer that I have ever owned. Right at the bottom you will see my more than 10 years old computer, as you can see there. So let me just connect a keyboard and mouse and see what are the properties that we're seeing in my computer. So here is a wireless dongle for my keyboard and mouse. So let me just plug this in. It is in. Let me bring in my mouse. Here is my mouse. Let's see if it works. So as you can see, our mouse is now moving. So let me just open my PC. Let's see our hard disk is properly detected. As you can see, we are seeing 199 plus 247. So that is about total makes up to 480 GB. Some of the space is used by the Windows. There is nothing in the drive D because we've just installed Windows 10 on this computer. Let me click on the C drive, click on properties, click on properties here, and as you can see, everything is detected properly. You can see that it does say 11th generation i5 11400, 8 GB of RAM that we've installed, Windows 7 64-bit, Windows 10 64-bit, and the computer is working flawlessly. And you did saw that how little time it took to boot into the Windows. So that is very fast. So there we go. This is how you put together a simple computer, even if you don't have a case. I also showed you how to turn on your computer if you don't have a case. This is one of the most expensive build that I've ever done, and I think this should last me very long. So once I buy the case, I will make another video putting all these things in the case, and that brings us to the end of this video. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. Bye bye.